Fellas, we have a lot to go over. Essentially, Mercules and Proctor was back on the Firing Range podcast again last night. This is an entire breakdown of everything that was mentioned. Yes, a lot of it is surrounding airborne effectiveness. We're also going to talk about skill-based matchmaking, the new exotic that's coming next week, a host of good things, guys. So get hyped! So the first thing brought up was Season 19's weapon design. Now, the design philosophy behind Season 19 weapons was actually to push foundry weapons. Almost every weapon made this season is tied to a foundry. Essentially, push the different identities each weapon foundry brings to the table, and the main challenge that the team faced when developing weapons this season was adding new subfamilies to weapons with the aggressive scout, glaive, and grenade launcher that were put into the game this season. Now this is actually a big deal, guys. Bungie in the past notoriously is taking away archetypes. Now they're giving us new archetypes, and I don't know about you guys, I like variety. Not only that, we did an entire breakdown video of the foundries, their history, their lore. It's really cool that Bungie is continuing to lean into this. Tex Mechanica we always just looked at as making exotic weapons, and all of a sudden we have a slew of dungeon weapons that are Tex Mechanica themed. These are the kind of things we want to see with all of our foundries, even if the origin trade is a little meh. Now, dungeon weapons was brought up again. Chris Proctor actually was the one who designed the dungeon weapons this season. He said the lever action animation used for the reload on the long arm was built for DMT, but designed to be transferable to legendary scout rifles. So we can actually expect to find that reload animation on more weapons in the future. Now, PvP hand cannons was also brought up. Mercules designed the event and playlist reward weapons and the Exalted Truth Trials hand cannon, which many folks are calling Annual Skate 2.0, as well as the Rose hand cannon. Now, there was different design philosophies between these two. Rose is designed to be the most consistent PvP hand cannon, while Exalted Truth is made to be the best at chaining kills. By the way, if you're interested in random rolls, we actually went over every random roll for all the different weapons this season, including the Exalted Truth. There were some people that actually are able to get the Exalted Truth hand cannon from Ingrams that they kept. If you have one and you're in our Discord, please, by all means, hit me up. I would love to review it right now. Now, diving into Rose a bit more, Chris actually talks about how they stacked the perks on Rose so that players never felt like they walked away from comp disappointed with a bad roll. Now, this does create the expectation that future weapons added to comp will be designed in a similar manner, but that may be difficult for other weapon archetypes. The takeaway, safe to assume we're getting more comp weapon rewards in the future though. This won't be something that's one and done, thank God. Now we just gotta get the actual ranking system right? Now, Gutshot Straight was brought up. Mercules designed Gutshot Straight as more of a niche perk that benefited some weapon archetypes more than others. Some weapon archetypes were lumped together into categories that didn't grant as big of a buff as necessary to make Gutshot Straight viable. Hence, the auto rifle buff this season. By the way, we still need to talk about that. Gutshot Straight on auto rifles is doing really good. Now, there's a change coming to Gutshot on pulse rifles in the future that the weapons team cannot talk about yet. I would just expect that to be buffed as well. If you're looking for a weapon though that has Gutshot Straight, guys, and you can even get enhanced Gutshot Straight, the Amit AR2 450 round per minute auto rifle, which is, by the way, a very good auto rifle, back and roll Gutshot. Do what you will with this information. Now, new perk design choice was brought up. One of the methods Bungie uses to design new perks is to take certain attributes of other perks and mesh them together. In the case of Perfect Float, it was Frenzy, Air Assault, and No Distractions to create a perk that grants more airborne effectiveness and flinch reduction after being in combat for a moderate duration. Now, we actually did a breakdown the other day, guys, of all the different perks, the new ones brought to us this season, including origin traits. I will say this about Perfect Float, the amount of flinch resist it gives is nuts. Now, moving on, Desperado. Bungie stated that Desperado is way too strong to put on weapons like 120 round per minute handguns. It was stated that the weapons team had tested this, but we can expect Desperado to potentially appear on burst fire weapons in the future, which could handle that buff much better than other archetypes. Guys, could you imagine a 120 round per minute hand cannon with Desperado? Oh, now close to melee was also brought up. This is another new trait this season. Close to melee, which was designed by Chris, is one of the few perks that buffs melee damage on glaives. Now, the design choice made here was hard to activate, but easy to extend the duration. We can expect more perks in the future that follow that philosophy. By the way, close to melee is on the new glaive this season, which is an aggressive glaive, and it says that glaive projectile final blows improves glaive melee damage, and glaive projectile melee damage extends the duration. I don't necessarily think it's difficult to proc this, but extending the duration where it can be transferred between both of those attacks is really good. Next, Target Lock. Target Lock was actually designed by an intern at Bungie who wanted a perk for in-game content that didn't require a kill trigger, and a PvP perk that rewarded being accurate in gunfights. Target Lock, guys, is actually really good if you have the max size. We did a breakdown of it the other day. It can ramp up to 40% more damage the longer you stay on target. Certain weapons can definitely achieve this better, most notably machine guns with magazine boosting perks. Does this make LMGs viable for in-game? Well, guys, we're actually going to be doing DPS tests here really soon. Target Lock will be one of the weapons we will be testing. And yes, we will be testing enhanced Target Lock. I actually want to do enhanced Target Lock with 4x times the charm on the new seasonal machine gun retrofit escapade. This should be interesting, man. And we finally got the weapon pattern. Let's go! Origin traits was also brought up. Origin traits influence the perk pools and design on certain weapons. In the case of text balance stock, which requires 4 hits to activate, explosive payload is found on the scout, which allows you to deal 4 shots of damage much faster. Or when using the grenade launcher, which is a dual shot. You can activate it after firing twice if you hit all the grenades. Bungie is actually happy where origin traits are right now and how they feel, but they think that they are suffering a bit from power creep, where a lot of new origin traits are better or stronger than the older ones. Now, they don't say it directly, but this might point to future buffs to weaker origin traits to bring them in line with the stronger ones, or future nerfs. Yeah, Bungie can go that route too. This ain't Buffland, man. Bungie gets down with some nerfs. Now, payload perks. There is no hidden accuracy benefit to payload perks. Good God. Really? I have been saying for so long that I think there's some hidden accuracy benefit to payload perks. Yes, I feel absolutely called out for this. I don't care though. I still like payload perks. Now, this actually takes us to airborne effectiveness, which was a big portion of this entire interview. First, let's start with the philosophy of AE. The philosophy behind airborne effectiveness was to reduce the number of deaths experienced from airborne players who haven't deliberately invested in AE. Now, the goal is for Destiny not to become an airborne dominant game where most of your time is spent in air. AE was also implemented to bridge the gaps between no in-air effectiveness and the benefits provided by Icarus Grip and Heat Rises. Now, they did achieve that goal, but they are planning on pulling back on AE in the future as Bungie has heard and seen the feedback that it's taken a lot of the fun out of the game for a lot of players. AE sounds like it will always exist though, to some capacity, but they do have plans to pull it back a bit. Later in the interview, Mercules talks about how the new system shipping in Lightfall will be much better than the system that we had pre-AE. Now, Strand in Lightfall, this was also brought up in regards to AE. A big reason why airborne effectiveness even exists is because of Lightfall and Strand. They wanted to have a system in place for Lightfall, so if in-air things need to be tuned, they have a system already in place to enact that tuning. Whereas putting a system like AE into the game with the launch of Lightfall could have had a lot of issues. Since Strand will allow you to be in the air a lot between the grappling, they need a system to bring stuff like that in line if things ever got too powerful during Lightfall. Guys, this was extremely eye-opening for me. I mean, it makes logical sense that you couldn't launch AE with Strand. That's just too much happening at once. So essentially, we've been beta testing airborne effectiveness in preparation for the new light subclasses. Now, they didn't want Destiny to shift to airborne dominant kind of game once Strand actually released, where everyone all the time can wreck in the air. So they wanted to make it so that you would have to invest in that playstyle for it to work, and so levers would be in place come Lightfall, so things can be balanced if they're too strong. Again, the AE system being those levers. But they did completely understand and realize that it doesn't feel good in its current form, and they are planning on adjusting it. Now, they mentioned that they shipped weak airborne effectiveness. AE was actually shipped conservatively because the weapons team didn't want everyone to easily be able to achieve perfect in-air accuracy, making the whole change pointless since there would be no major investment involved. The flip side is they shipped too conservatively, and it was a major performance hit for players and the feel of the game, and that there was just not enough ways to build into AE effectively. Again, like I said, guys, we're like testing this out for Bungie. Like, okay, tune it here. Oh, no, we gotta pull it back there. We went too hard. Now, AE changes. It is possible to split off AE from primaries versus specials and heavy weapons. Bungie could even remove the system entirely if necessary. But what's coming in Lightfall is basically removing all airborne effectiveness for primary weapons. That's a huge one. Because honestly, I'm okay with it working on shotguns and other special weapons. I mean, it's very obvious you shouldn't be able to take to the air with a shotgun and have perfect in-air accuracy. But if I'm running from a guy who's pushing me and I jump in the air with my primary weapon, in my opinion, should still be able to land to combat that shotgun rusher. And if you haven't seen shotguns here lately, guys, they have been substantially buffed this season. We will be doing a shotgun breakdown soon. Now, it was also mentioned later in the podcast that there will be some airborne effectiveness bonuses tied to the Strand subclasses itself. And they plan to add more AE bonuses to other already existing things to let you build into it even more. Now, they are currently developing something to address the weird times where airborne effectiveness kicks in when you're barely off the ground. Oh, say you go down a step of stairs or a small ramp while shooting, you're technically in the air barely for a short time, thus airborne effectiveness kicks in. You see, guys, that is why we complain. Sure, you might only be in the air for like 0.3 seconds or something, but it's enough to mess you up mid gunfight. Either way it goes, they're looking to fix this. We're walking downstairs or changing elevations, or that rock that has that little small gap or whatever you're stepping on will not count you as being in the air. This will also fix similar issues in Nightfalls with the grounded modifier active. We're walking down stairs won't register you as in the air, and you won't get one shot. Now, at 52 and 46 seconds, it was actually brought up that airborne effectiveness changes will, at the latest, arrive with Lightfall. It is possible they could get it shipped out mid-season 19 if playtesting goes well. No promises, though. Now, at 53 minutes and 20 seconds, it was said, and I quote, "In Lightfall, all primary weapons, without investing into airborne effectiveness, will be as accurate as they were pre-AE with Icarus Grip." Now, auto-aim penalties are being reduced, just over half, and bullet magnetism / reticle friction on controller is being completely removed. There will actually be bullet magnetism bump when you exceed 60 AE, so weapons will be stickier on controller in air before AE was even implemented. So controller players, you're going to get even more of a buff. Now, the maximum precision aim cone is being increased by about 50%. Basically, how far away your shots can be from a Guardian's head before they count as body shots. That will be an exponential curve. So the more you build into it, the higher benefit you will receive. For special weapons, accuracy penalties on snipers and slugs are being halved, and on pellets, they are being completely removed. This should allow these weapons to perform on par, if not better than they did before AE, if you build into them. Again, that's kind of whatever for me. Primary weapons is what I'm mainly focused on because I think a meta is much healthier when primary weapons are the more dominant choice inside of PvP. Just my personal opinion. Now, at an hour and 5 minutes, it was actually brought up and asked how the jump abilities you chose affects airborne effectiveness. This is something the Sandbox team has discussed but not taken action on, and a possible future exists where the jump you choose could actually affect your AE, but no plans in that department as of right now. That's an interesting one. Like when you look at the different types of jumps, there's gonna have to be pros and cons, or what they're saying here is they're gonna give you pros and cons to these jumps. For instance, I would assume our strafe jumps or like strafe lifts, which are really like our better control jumps, would equate to like in-air accuracy being better with those jumps. Whereas like a burst glide jump, that's all about movement, so therefore AE might not be as strong with that jump. Now, in an hour and 7 minutes, the heavy sniper AE bonuses weren't supposed to make it into the TWAB. That was supposed to be an under-the-hood quality of life change that players would discover as they played, but it was missed on the final edit. Mercules did mention that there is a heavy weapon balance change coming with Lightfall, and later when talking about Whisper the Worm, actually at the hour 32 mark, Proctor mentions Whisper is good, it's just hard to use. You should see it when LFRs come down a bit. No confirmation here, but this definitely sounds like we're getting a linear fusion rifle nerf coming Lightfall, which, let's be real, they've been dominant for a good year now. Actually, what, like a year and a half? Yeah. Now, Revision 0 was brought up. This was at the hour and 9 minute mark, and Mercules was actually the one who designed Revision 0 from the ground up. He stated that this is the gun he's most excited to use in PvE and PvP, and this seems like confirmation enough that this gun, with all the different catalysts and crafting options, will be able to be spec'd out for whichever game mode you prefer. Now, it reminds a lot of us of Kvostov back in Rise of Iron, essentially allow us to swap every perk on the weapon, even altering its rate of fire to match how you prefer to use it. Mercules says that he believes that this is the most customizable exotic Bungie has ever made. Merc also let us know that it will have 2 custom built-in origin traits, and this is also first because it is the first time we've seen origin traits on an exotic. So guys, extremely curious about this one. The quest for this launches on Tuesday. We've already done like a pre-quest guide if you want to look into that, but we will be going after this exotic first thing Tuesday morning. Now, some quick fire Twitter Q&As that were thrown out. At the hour and 16 mark, will we see damage-based perks for Void in the future to expand upon Repulsor Brace? Answer, yes. Is the weapons teams going to tell us what it is? No. Hour and 17, there are plans far into the future post-Lightfall to add predictable recoil to more weapon archetypes. Not a fixed recoil with no randomness, but a pattern that you can actually follow. Again, I would associate this change similar to like our shotguns and the pellet spreads. Bungie is really wanting to shape and shift identities within archetypes itself. Now, the hour and 18 minute mark, is it possible to get a craftable Hawkmoon and DMT with more perks? The answer is yes. These weapons were the prototypes to weapon crafting before it even existed. Holy hell. At some point, expect Hawkmoon and Deadman's Tale to be craftable. Now, I think the most enlightening thing about that is that Bungie was already thinking about crafting when DMT and Hawkmoon were brought to us, which is crazy. Now, the hour and 22 mark, exotic changes in Lightfall will include Queenbreakers, Ruinous Effigy, Leviathan's Breath, 1000 Voices, which will probably finally synergize with Solar 3.0, Sunshot, which probably will synergize with Solar 3.0, Polaris Lance, which will probably be the same thing, Two-Tailed Fox, and Prometheus Lens. Now, the hour and 27 mark, it was mentioned that Revoker is getting slashed again. Reversal of Fortune will require 2 missed shots to refund ammo to the magazine instead of 1 shot. Revoker is one of the few weapons that has reached back from the grave to terrorize competitive PvP play despite being sunset. Dude, I'm surprised Mountaintop hasn't seen a rise. Like, for real, guys, Mountaintop is still very good. Hour and 31 minutes, Dead Messenger is getting a PvP only nerf. We knew this was coming. We should have all seen it coming. Enjoy it while you can. Hour and 34 minutes, Osmosis and Elemental Capacitor will work with Strand. Expect AE benefits. All right. So Elemental Capacitor, of course, breaks down stat bumps depending on the subclass you are rocking. Right here, it's very obvious that Strand is going to give you some sort of AE benefits with Elemental Capacitor. I definitely want you to take note, guys. Everything about airborne effectiveness is very much embedded into this game, as in it's not going away. It's going to get pulled back substantially for primary weapons, but this is a system built for Strand. Now, 1 minute and 35 seconds, when choosing weapons that are available for crafting, seasonal content is fair game. Raids are the only in-game content on the menu for weapon crafting. Trials, Nightfalls, and Dungeons are still planned to stay as RNG drops. Raids are planned to get enhanced traits on Adepts, and Proctor said this may be expanded to other Adept weapons in the future. Yeah, guys, Raids next season in Lightfall, definitely going to be worth your time, especially the Master version. Now, there was something mentioned about skill-based matchmaking, guys. Essentially, it was brought up on why Bungie feels more comfortable pulling back AE now. And they pretty much said because of skill-based matchmaking. They feel like since players are playing other players of similar skill, the play styles that were so overwhelming to lower skill players, that being in-air play style, shouldn't be that big of an issue because good players are playing other good players. Now, the reason why I bring this up is not that I'm agreeing with skill-based matchmaking or airborne effectiveness. What I'm really trying to say here, guys, is that skill-based matchmaking, just like airborne effectiveness, is not going away. Personally, if I had to choose which one to get rid of, for me, guys, AE on primary weapons, 100%. I don't like the game feeling worse. I like my shots to feel consistent. And don't get me wrong, I don't like playing the sweatiest of the sweaties. If Bungie can really just get the connections corrected, because that's arguably my other biggest complaint when it comes to skill-based matchmaking. When you reach certain levels or certain thresholds inside of Crucible, the connections just get so bad. And Bungie really has to prioritize connections in those situations. Just my opinion, especially in things like 6v6. Like, connections should be the default first, with skill-based matchmaking also being lumped into that, but we have to have good connections. You can't be matching that guy on the other side of the earth just because we have a similar combat rating. But overall, guys, that is the breakdown for last night's interview. I hope you enjoyed this. Hope you're excited about the future. This definitely confirmed a lot of things, including the fact that I felt like my weapons became inaccurate when there was like shifts in terrain, such as like stairs and other areas. Dude, architecture inside of Bungie is weird, man. And you know it. Have you not ever thrown a trip mine grenade into a wall to have the trip mine grenade point straight down? So don't tell me the surfaces that you're walking on are flat. I don't believe it, man. The Matrix don't work like that. Fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching. And as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.